Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's before 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, if it's this early, you know, I found a story this morning, and as soon as I saw it, I got angry. I got frustrated. I got angry, and I knew this is a story I wanted to talk about this morning. It's about Jim Irsay, I hope I'm saying that right, the Colts owner, executive, CEO, and all that. He owns the football team, the Colts. I had never even heard of this guy. You guys know I'm not a sports fan. I'm not a fan of the Colts or football or anything. I had never even heard of this guy till today. Let me go over the whole thing. I'll give you the timeline, how I came across the story and my thoughts on it. Okay, here's the story. On HBO's Real Sports HBO, he just did an interview last week, and this is just hitting the news like yesterday. And it's making a lot of news because of what Jim Irsay says in this interview, what he claims. He was arrested for DWI, driving while under the influence or driving while intoxicated, back in 2014. And he talks about this, and he gives a reason or an excuse for this, and he makes a few statements. And when I first saw these statements, I was livid. I was angry. I was disgusted. Once I actually watched the interview of him, it kind of tempered my anger a little bit. And I realized that this guy has the disease of addiction currently, and he needs help. And I thought back to the stuff I did and said, and who I blamed, and the lies, and that's part of the disease of addiction. So it kind of tempered my anger just a little bit, but it's still. Let me fill you in on the whole thing here. So this is making the news today. Like I said, it's more of a sports story, and I'm not a big sports fan. Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure. I think he's probably around 64 years old now. Now, apparently, he had hip replacement surgery back in 2000. The closest I could find was June of 2013. He said he had recently had hip replacement surgery. He was arrested for DWI over a year later, 15 months. June to July to August, August to September. 15 months later, he was arrested for DWI in September of 2014. And in this interview, he claims that because he had hip surgery and he had been in the car for 45 minutes, he could barely walk. And, it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. These things weren't fair for him. And this, just like I said, I've had hip replacement surgery. I was a stone cold hardcore addict, opiate addict, and I started with pills. And I had the hip replacement surgery just 3 years ago, while I was in recovery. And I was very scared when I had the hip replacement surgery that I would relapse, and I didn't. I didn't even use the medication they gave me. And when I saw this interview, let me read to you what he says in this interview. He says, I'm prejudiced against because I am a rich white billionaire. yeah, because he's a rich white billionaire. If I was just the average guy down the block, they're not going to pull me in. Of course they're not. This is what he said. He says, I don't care what it sounds like. It's the truth. I could give a damn what people think, how anything sounds or sounds like. The truth is the truth, and I know the truth. Okay. So when I say, look, I'm a liberal. I'm on here every day. And when I first saw this, I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. I totally believe in Black Lives Matter. I've seen everything that happened with George Floyd and everything. And now you see this. And on top of this, you really see a push towards straight on fascism these days, with the whole MAGA crowd idolizing Elon Musk, Donald Trump, rich white billionaires. And that's the thing that scares me here. And I'm willing to bet there's going to be a lot of MAGA types that are going to totally agree with this, and they're going to back him up on this. Let me just go over what he said here. All right. If the average guy down the block, so if I got pulled over, because after I had hip surgery and I got pulled over, would the cops just let me go? No, of course not. As a matter of fact, back when I was using, I probably made up excuses just like him. And I probably would have said, well, I'm a liberal and they hate me because they saw my YouTube channel. I talk about cops sometimes on my YouTube channel, so they're just picking on me. And I could imagine myself saying this. Let me say this. When I had hip replacement surgery, they told me specifically, they told me not to even sit in a car for 3 weeks. Not because the angle, I couldn't bring my, I wasn't supposed to not supposed to cross my legs at all. Not supposed to bring my hips up, my legs up to any more than a 90-degree angle, I think it was. I couldn't even sit in a car for 3 weeks. I wasn't supposed to drive a car for 2 months. But let's look at this though. This is over a year later. Not only was I driving, I was riding a bike, hiking, and everything else 15 months later. I still have a little bit of a little bit of a limp, but it's also because of two previous back surgeries and the fact that I can't feel my left leg. I don't really think it has anything to do with my hip surgery. So this guy saying this, it made me livid when I first saw it. I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. But then I saw the video of it, and like I said, I was a hardcore addict for 2 decades. And as soon as I saw this interview, I had no doubt in my mind that he's still addicted. He's still using. I mean, through this whole interview, he's not quite slurring his words, but I think maybe you'd call it like using words out of context. Like the way he says, I don't care what, I don't give a damn what people think, how anything sounds. He repeats himself, and the way, the manner of his speaking, the context that he's using the words, plus his eyes are always down, looking down. If you look at the mugshot from 2014, he can't even keep his eyes open. I'll put that on the thumbnail. If you look at the arrest in the video, there's no doubt in my mind that this guy, this isn't hip replacement surgery. And he can't stand up. His balance is definitely way off, and it has nothing to do. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I had hip replacement surgery, and I was addicted to pills, and I know what I'm seeing here. I'm not seeing a problem with hip replacement. I'm seeing a problem with addiction to pills, with using too many pills. Not to mention the fact that there was multiple bottles of painkillers found in his vehicle. And this is another thing that doctors tell you straight out, do not bring these pills in the car with you. If you bring them, make sure that they're in a container. Bringing pills out of a container is illegal. You can get arrested for that, for a felony. And if you absolutely need to bring medication with you, bring a small amount in the bottle. I never brought any kind of medication with me. I wasn't taking medication 15 months later. I wasn't taking it even 5 days later. I was taking aspirin. This is just an excuse. But when I saw the video, I realized that this guy still has a bigger problem with the disease of addiction. And I hate to say this, but I'm willing to cut him a little bit of slack for that. He's not in his right mind. And he's making up excuses and lying and manipulating, trying to get out of this. And that's obvious. So, even though I'm livid at him saying that somebody like me, because I'm part Native American, part Caucasian, and I'm nowhere near rich or wealthy, that I would just be let off the hook if I drove 15 months after my hip replacement surgery and I looked like him, that they would have just let me, get back in the car and drive home. That's ridiculous. I probably still would be dealing with legal matters today. That's some of my thoughts on this. Like I said, I didn't prepare this video at all. I just saw this and I had to talk about it. So it's kind of like an off-the-cuff video. I'll probably talk more about it, see how the views go. Also, there's one other thing I want to make. I got 2 more videos lined up for today. The one I talked about yesterday about seeing a man on the sidewalk and in bad shape and realizing that used to be me. And another one where a group of young men in a car started, I believe they were yelling at me. They were yelling to me. And they kept going, Chief, Chief, hey, Chief, 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 hey, Chief. I'm going to need to talk about that in the upcoming video. All right. You guys have a great Thanksgiving. There'll be more videos today. Enjoy them. Have a good meal.